Hi everybody, and welcome to Traveling with Russell, and welcome to a new video, and welcome to Moscow. Beautiful sunny day here today. I thought I would come back to a shopping mall that I was here about 2 years ago and do a walk around. A lot of people in that original video said, come back 1 year later and show us what it's like. Show us it 2 years later. And here I am, just about 2 years after that first video. I'm here at MEGA Tyoply Stan. Now the actual shopping center is called MEGA because it is very big. And you can see right behind me a very famous blue colored building, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And I thought I would see what it's like today and see what's going on and see how it feels inside and see if they've made any changes. I think depending on where you live in the world, these two colors may be very familiar to a lot of people, particularly people who go shopping for things like furniture or home goods. And this was the building where IKEA was at this location. And the mega shopping centers are very well known that they have a shopping center element, and then they would have an IKEA, and then generally they would have some kind of a hypermarket, which at this location they've got Auchan, the very well-known French hypermarket chain. However, this IKEA has now been closed 2 years or perhaps a little bit longer. And this is the car park that would have been absolutely full to the brim. And now there is literally nobody parked here. Where we are in Moscow, just off in the distance, you can see one of the flyover bridges. That's the very famous MKAD here in Moscow, which is a very big ring road that you can drive around the entire Moscow region, and it's always full with traffic. And generally these mega shopping centers were always near one of the main highways, so it was easy for people to get here. See one of the buses going by. However, this front car park is very much empty. When I came here 2 years ago, they were actually building an extension to the shopping center, which is just behind these buses right here. And still, they haven't finished it. Now, it is being completed, and it's going to be an addition to the shopping center. And it's meant to be a food court. It's meant to be some shops and businesses in there. However, I'm not sure who would come shopping there, considering how quiet this place is now, and the fact that most people came to this shopping center just to come to IKEA, which you can see the bright yellow and blue colors, and then also the Russian Federation flag is flying, but the second flagpole doesn't have a flag on it anymore. There is actually quite a lot of buses that pass through here that would bring people to this area. There is no housing immediately nearby, so people would have to come here either by car or by public transport. So it's very much a shopping center where you've got to make a decision to come here. You wouldn't just go for a walk from where you live to find this place. However, it feels very strange being so empty in this car park. One thing that's very interesting with the main entrance and exit of what was the IKEA building is the amount of delivery vehicles that are here, and particularly brand new ones. And basically what they're doing with this location here is they're now repurposing it into a dark store, and it's going to do deliveries out of this building, and it's called Mega Market, which they could have been a little bit more creative with the name of it. And then these gentlemen right here do their pickups and then drop them off to wherever the pickup's meant to go to. You'll see someone coming and going now. So there is definitely some movement in this building. However, it's been operated as a dark store. Of course, I'm here talking in English and pointing my camera everywhere. We are going to get a few people staring at me. This particular place is quite regional to the center of Moscow. So a lot of people will be a bit taken back when they hear someone speaking English and staring at the buildings and wondering what's going on. But this Mega Market is an online shopping platform where you can buy things pretty much for delivery. It's not a place where you can come to physically to shop, but it's a very big warehouse that they've now suddenly got, which they didn't have before, and essentially a logistics center for all of their deliveries. I used to come here quite a lot with my wife. She would enjoy going to IKEA. We'd go to the shopping center, to the food court, and then generally everyone ends up at Auchan, at the supermarket at the other end of the car park here. And now we just don't come because the shopping center that's here still existing really has all the same shops replicated at other shopping centers around Moscow. And there's not really that excitement to come to Mega like there was a few years ago when IKEA was here. You know, you could come and spend almost the whole day. The one thing that's interesting with the main entrance though is they've done a lot of remodeling, and they put new road surfaces down. They've redone all of the front entrance of the mall, and they've really smartened up the place quite a lot. So what we'll do is we'll go for a walk around the inside of the shopping center, and we'll go and have a look at some of the shops and see how some of them have changed. I think quite a few brands, of course, left Russia, and there's going to be some that are newly arrived here at this shopping center. So let's get on inside. Before I actually head on inside, there is actually 3 entrances to the shopping center, and then there would be an entrance to the supermarket way off in the distance. So I'm coming into this far left-hand entrance, which essentially would be the same entrance where you would have come in and out of IKEA previously. The shopping center is open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day of the week. And they say you can wear high heels in here, which is nice. Now this would have been the side entrance to the IKEA right here, and you could come in and out through this doorway. And then originally this was glass windows with all the displays of the furniture, which are now paneled over. And I would imagine at some point another business will come into this spot. Now I've not actually been here for at least a year, so we're walking inside together and having a look around. And I do remember here on the right there was a pharmacy somewhere here, and then there was actually a jeans shop right here, and now it's a very large bedding store called Ascona, and they've actually expanded their business quite dramatically in the last 2 years, because now they've added furniture and things like sheets and beds and lots of things beyond only mattresses and beds. And good on them. They've took a very nice big chunk of this corner of the shopping center. So it's very nice that they've got a location here. The box store is still in the same place. That hasn't changed. This, of course, is a very well-known Russian brand of home items. Things like products for your kitchen, vacuum cleaners, things like that. They're actually in every shopping center in Russia. And then we come here to what used to be the section with all the electronics and phone shops, which I think they're still here. It does feel very empty at this end of the shopping center. As we walk through, there is another furniture shop here, and this was actually where the Levi shop was. And you can kind of see this blue and wooden paneling, which was part of the entranceway. And this shop does furniture and kitchens off plan. So you can come here with your measurements and get a new kitchen. And this is interesting. So this Kellebeck store was recently opened about a year ago, and it was meant to be the answer to IKEA. And of course, it's very difficult to replicate what they did and what they've done worldwide. And the store is closed. And they had a very big deal when they opened. They had grand opening and another furniture style store. And they're no longer here. What I'll try and do is just point out some of the businesses that are either here or not here. and at least get an idea of how it feels. Samsung shop is still here, hasn't changed. Now they did actually have a couple of other phone retailers here and phone resellers, and it looks like perhaps these two have changed over. There's a store here with fridges and washing machines, and then Huawei. I think depending on where you live in the world, it might be a familiar brand name. And then I've talked about this many times in videos before about Apple and the fact that it's not in Russia officially, and they have premium reseller stores which do kind of look like Apple stores. They're much smaller, and they have all of the Apple products and then all of the new release products are pretty much here the same time as they were released worldwide. And you can see right in the front, iPhone 16 Pro, right on the sign there, and they've got some of the other models as well. One of the reasons why a lot of the smaller electrical shops aren't very successful in Russia is because there's very large chain supermarket-sized electrical stores, and this one is called MVideo, and these stores are absolutely huge. They're as big as a traditional supermarket, and they have literally everything that you would possibly want. Just in the front here, the entire phone section dominates this initial entrance, and they have every model and every brand that you might possibly want in your life and more. And despite the fact we saw a Samsung shop across the way, they have a very large build out of Samsung, and the store just keeps going. We aren't gonna walk around here, we'll keep walking around the shopping center. But if you need anything electrical, you'd come here first before you'd end up going to a lot of the smaller retailers. Just as a point of reference, I am here on a Tuesday afternoon. So if there isn't a lot of people here, it's because people are at work and children are at school. So a lot of people definitely won't be here, especially between around about 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. But because shopping centers throughout all of Russia are open till 10 p.m., a lot more people would come later in the evening, and particularly come on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. But I'm here on a Tuesday afternoon, so if it looks empty, it does feel empty to me, but I know that's always the case, especially during school hours. As I walk around the outskirts of the inside of the shopping center, they've got lots of these help desks, and they've all pretty much been abandoned because they just don't get enough people coming to use them. And it's super interesting, they put a robot here where you can ask for directions. And who needs humans to help you when you've got robots sitting right there at the help desk? Talking about clothing and shoes, and particularly sporting items, there's a couple of very large sporting goods stores in Russia that also dominate in their own category, and they've got huge supermarket size sports stores, like you'll see here, this Sportmaster. And then the way this shopping center is laid out, they actually have different zones, and each area as you walk around would have different categories of products. So here you'll see D-Mix. So this is actually a multi-brand clothing store. They actually have a lot of their own in-house clothing products in this place. But then if you look upstairs, they've got all the different brands of shoes. And then this area here used to have all of the different brands that had individual standalone stores. So I think people might recognize Reebok, I mean Sneakerbox, or Sneaker Box. I always find that funny when I see it. And then on the left and right of this place, as I walk down, this would be all of the different individual shoe brands or sports leisure brands. This was the Nike store, which still doesn't have anybody in there. It's interesting inside there, all of the furniture's there and all of the stands for the products are there. There's just nobody literally taking over the lease of that place. And then Limota Sport. This is actually a new brand that's come to Russia, and this is essentially Adidas. Now, depending on where you live, is it Adidas or Adidas? And the Adidas stores all closed in Russia, and then Limota Sport opened. And you can see literally every product in there is Adidas products. And then over here was, I can't remember the name of this chain of the shoe store. This blue color should give it away. However, they're not here. And on this other side, Street Beat is a multi-brand shoe store as well. You can see right on the advertising, Reebok at the front. And they've got all sorts of different brands of shoes and sportswear inside. Pretty much all of the major brands where they don't have their standalone shop, they now have these multi-brand stores that have opened and took over. I like how they put the signage here and it looks like Lego. And of course, Lego is not in Russia either. We will see the store a little bit further around. I know there's one in this shopping center. And I was just trying to remember what this brand was, and it was Skechers. That was what used to be here. And of course, it's not opened. The thing now with all of these shops that are now empty, we can literally walk into one of the multi-brand stores and still buy all of the brands that were in these here in Russia. With these large shopping centers like this, there was every opportunity for every brand to have its own standalone store and its own branded shop. And of course, you know, you can still go to 9 different shoe shops if you want to get some sports shoes. So it's not really a big issue if 1 or 2 of the main brands have left, because these multi-brand stores are replacing them very easily. It's really interesting walking around, having a look, and then staring at the store, and then realizing where they've changed their name. So this was Aldo Shoes, and now it's called MYSA. Not too sure where the reference to that was. Here is Bootwood, which was Timberland, and the store looks absolutely unchanged. Always very nice looking stores, and that feeling when you go in there. And then as we keep walking, USPA hasn't changed at all, and it's completely as it was. And we're going to come pretty much now towards the middle section of the shopping center. There is actually a Chinese brand, and this apparently is a very large brand in China. However, outside of China, I think they're not as well known. Anybody has heard of this brand of clothing, particularly sportswear? Let me know if you know about it. They have very nice stores also, very bright, very vibrant. And the brand Anta is what I'll call it, if you know about it. When we come to this food court area, this main part of the shopping center is just huge. And it's so drastically overbuilt when you walk around. I do remember what was here previously, and this was actually the lint store. And now it's a candy store where you can buy things by weight. And these are all over Russia and all over Moscow. And now there is no standalone lint store. However, I can go into a supermarket and buy lint without a problem at all. So this food court area here is drastically overbuilt, and I am forever curious, was this ever full? Perhaps on a Sunday when IKEA would have been booming, everybody would come over to this area to have something to eat between shopping. Cinnabon is still in Russia and still here. Perhaps we might want some shark for lunch. Yeah, they do tend to overbuild some of these shopping centers, and I think the fact that there's just so much space here, you can see this huge roof that they put over the whole structure. And most people may not even walk in through the main doors here. They'll end up coming in through another entrance. Of course, we all know about Starbucks. It's now called Stars Coffee. And then there is quite a few of the more regular food places here on the right-hand side. And there was actually a Papa John's here. Now that's gone. There is a Franklin Burgers, which is actually my favorite burger place at the moment. Considering how much space this downstairs level is, for some reason they put a mezzanine in, and it has the Burger King up there, and then the replacements for the Western brands, which used to be McDonald's and KFC. So all of the three big brands are all on this upstairs level. Of course, now called Rostik and Kuzni i Tochka. So they're all up there and operating. Let's keep walking around. So there is a few people here, not that many. I think generally when I come here, especially during the week, it feels like it's all the employees on their lunch breaks that are hanging about and having a break. It's very interesting when you look at the statistics about the shopping centers in Moscow, and this barely scrapes into the top 10 largest shopping centers. And originally, if you think back more than 2 years ago when everything was in full operation, this was really a destination shopping center. So people would come here for the day and do some shopping, wander around IKEA, wander around the big hypermarket, and this was a day out for everybody. And now with some of the main brands that have left Russia, there isn't really a need to come to this regional area to come shopping anymore. For me personally, I've got 3 other shopping centers that I could visit before it's even necessary for me to come here, because all of the shops in here are repeated in all of the malls throughout Moscow region, and then when you go into the center of Moscow, so everything is the same. It's just duplicated, and there's no need to come here anymore. And it's such a shame for all of the staff and the businesses that are here, because there just isn't the traffic that there used to be 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Perhaps the front of this store might look familiar, and the exterior of the shops are completely unchanged. It's now a store called Stockman, which I think is very well known in different parts of Finland and the Baltic countries. Now they've actually got the Russian spelling of the name on the wall here, and this was originally the Zara store, or this would have been the Zara home store. And of course this interior and exterior are exactly how they were. And then the regular clothing part was here on the left-hand side. And all they've simply done is just change the signage. And Stockman was actually in this shopping center in a different location. However, I think they've moved over here. And the actual store itself is a department store concept. So it's all of the different brands inside one shop. And again, this multi-brand store concept, which is very well known, I think, even throughout the world, especially department stores. So you can go into the handbag section and buy all of the brands of handbags in one store that you don't necessarily have to go to an individual branded store for. So Stockman was very well known in Russia. It was in other shopping centers as well. It looks like they've just changed their location a little bit. Actually, you can see here on the wall some of the brands that they have. And all of these stores that are on this sign right here did have existing shops in this mall, and I'm fairly sure that they're all still here. If I'm not mistaken, they're all still here as standalone stores, but yet you can go into Stockman and buy them as well. In the shopping center close to where I live in Moscow region, they actually have Dyson set up as dye shop. And I wonder here if this actual day is the company that's selling all the Dyson products. They've of course got everything set up as it is in any other pop-up shop like this, and I'm not sure. I think maybe the staff are on a quick break and they're not here. However, you can still look at all the products. And now we come down this middle aisle here with mostly ladies' stores. The men don't get a very good run in the shopping centers in Russia. It's so dominated by lady branded shops in Russian shopping centers. Perhaps Furla might be recognizable to some. The one thing they have at Mega, and I really like this, is they've got drinking fountains where you can get very nice cold water, and you can fill up your own cup, of course. They've got very nice filtered water right there. Marco Polo, or however they want to describe it, is now called Scandinavian Studio, and all of the things in the shop are completely unchanged. And then perhaps some of the brands on this right-hand side might be familiar. Now, one thing that has reopened very recently is the Hugo Boss stores. These were closed for right about 2 years, and then about 2 months ago, they all started to reopen again. And literally, they just opened the doors and started trading. They probably just had to dust a couple of shelves, and that was it. And then every shopping center in Russia has phone repair shops. And the other brand that left Russia, and now it's reopened again, is Swarovski. And they haven't changed their name or the spelling whatsoever. And the stores are just as beautiful as they ever were, with all of their jewelry and figurines on the shelf. My wife's favorite jewelry is Swarovski. Another one of my wife's favorite stores, and I know them all very well because she likes to go to specific shops, was Uniqlo. And this was exactly where the Uniqlo was. And it's now actually called Snow Queen. And they have all of the winter coats. And they actually have these in a lot of different shopping centers in Russia. And I know my wife's bought a jacket from one of these other locations before. And this was the Uniqlo store. Feels a lot more sparse inside now than what it used to be. They've reconfigured it slightly. All the same stands and everything. Just winter jackets galore. Going back about a year ago, there was this Just Clothes brand that opened, and it really was trying to look like Uniqlo and feel like Uniqlo. A lot of their fashion and their design is incredibly similar, and right down to even the logo in a little way. And they interestingly opened across from where the Uniqlo store was, and you know, there's a lot of similarities in the brand. However, this is actually a Russian chain that basically pulled out a lot of the clothing from another store brand and then put it into this brand of Just Clothes stores to create a concept store which mimics Uniqlo as close as possible. One thing that was talked about a lot when a lot of the brands left and then stores reopened in their place was the interesting names for the stores. And this is a store called MAG or MAG, and this was Zara, or this is the replacement for Zara, if there's such a thing. And such an interesting name. I don't know what they reference at all. Anybody I possibly ask doesn't understand either what they were doing when they decided to reopen all the stores with a different name. The actual brand that was Zara got sold off to another company. Now, the Zara franchise in Russia was owned by somebody in the Middle East, and then now it's owned by somebody else in the Middle East. And it's just such a complicated thing, all these changes that have been made. This is a Russian jewelry store chain that is in every shopping center I possibly walk in. And you don't even have to travel that far to go to one. And we come down here now towards the kids wing of the shopping center and all of the children's stores. And this was the Lego store. Now it still looks like the Lego store. However, they've got a mixture of original Lego and some of the Russian Lego, as they like to call it. And there is quite a lot more now of these Russian branded Lego products in the shop. And there's a lot less of the original Lego in here. Well, the shop looks very similar. You will see on the back wall of the shop there all of the Lego products. And then there's some tucked in over here. So it's definitely more than available if you want to buy it in Russia. It's definitely noticeable coming here midweek how much quieter this children's section is. Normally the kids are just screaming and going wild. And today there's only about 10 right there. Most of them were kids that perhaps are not old enough to go to school. And pretty much midweek at shopping centers, it'll be as quiet as it is today. And the people that are shopping now will be people who have days off and are coming to this regional shopping center because perhaps they like the quietness of it and just how big it is. Especially when it's cold outside as well. It's a good excuse to come to an indoor shopping center to feel nice and warm as you go shopping. There is another clothing store here, which is a department store style of shop called Lady Gentleman City. And this is another very large shop and department store. You'll actually see on the outside here again all of the brands that are inside this shop that they're selling as standalone brands inside the department store. So you'll see just on the walls of the different stands right there all of the mostly Western brands that are available. So things like Hugo Boss and Tommy Hilfiger are all in this store versus going to the standalone shops. I think one thing that's definitely misunderstood when you watch even my videos or someone else's videos about retail in Russia is the number of shopping malls they've got throughout the entire country. Now, only in Moscow there is more than 300 shopping malls. And of course, the population in Moscow is between 15 and 17 million people. So it does warrant having a lot of retail shopping centers and businesses. You know, do there need to be this many? I mean, perhaps for me, I don't think so. However, it's still a thing to do in Russia. It's still something that culturally Russians like to do, and make a trip to a shopping center and maybe not even necessarily come to the traditional shoe and clothing stores. You would come to what used to be IKEA. You'd come to the hypermarket, go to the cinema, maybe go to some of the home stores that are here, and not just come to buy clothes and shoes. So there's 299 more shopping centers throughout Moscow and the greater Moscow region. And that's why sometimes in a lot of the videos that I'm making, it might look quiet or empty, depending on when I come, because people can shop much closer to home than coming out to this shopping center. You know, for me, it's about an hour and a half to get here. I've got a shopping center as big as this, less than 20 minutes from my house. I don't need to travel this far to come to this place to come shopping. There's another multi-brand shoe store here as well called Superstep, and these stores are in all the shopping centers again in Moscow and throughout Russia. And I do feel like I'm repeating myself saying the same thing when I see these different brands. However, you know, there is a market for having this many stores because of the population. Perhaps there's a few too many of them, but they seem to find a way to open them and be successful, and they're not closing the stores. More clothing stores down this aisle here, and jewelry shops as well. think there's about 4 of them that are quite close together here. And then a very well-known international shoe brand, Echo. Is that what you call it? Or is it ECCO? Please let me know if I've got some of these names wrong or I'm mispronouncing them. It would be interesting. There's one of the cosmetic stores. And we pretty much wrap around back to the main middle part here where the food hall is. So all up, there's around about 200 shops in this shopping center. And then also the very large hypermarket Auchan. I think I might wander over there and do the ending of the video. So a little bit of a big supermarket, which is just it's an entire separate video in itself when you walk around. And this is the middle main entrance where pretty much I started the video from. And not so many people tend to come in this way because I think a lot of people park undercover from the shopping center. There is an underground parking area. Pretty much the whole underneath of the building is a parking station. So a lot of people will drive in and just come up the escalators into the main part of the shopping center. Here's another one of these help booths. And there's nobody here either. I think Lacoste might be familiar. So the one thing I guess we can take from this walk around is the fact that this shopping center is still here. I'm back 2 years later than my original video when I did that very first walk around, and barring, I would say, around about 12 or 15 businesses, the whole center is leased and open. And a lot of the replacement businesses are Russian companies that have realized that there's an opportunity to be in a shopping center like this, which 2 years ago they wouldn't have been able to get a lease whatsoever. So it's actually benefited the Russian companies because all of these spaces become available, and they weren't here 2 years ago. I think now there might be a couple of men's stores, or at least one. And then of course, the great man, he also left Russia about 2 years ago, and then he must have got his visa renewed and came back. So welcome back to Moscow, Mr. Hilfiger. Now we might actually just show one more store at the end here, because it might be interesting. In Australia, where I live, Gloria Jeans, which is this brand, is actually a coffee shop chain, which is very interesting. And here it's a clothing store brand. Now the last place I'm going to show you here is on the right hand side, and this was the Crocs store, and it was for a lot of years the Crocs store. Now it's called Sabu, and if you can possibly tell me what that means, all I know it as is the Crocs store. And what did Sabu have to do with the name and the chain? If someone can let me know in the comments. I feel almost I like Crocs better, but maybe Sabu is a thing. I've made it over to Auchan, and this is a very big supermarket. They do like to use the word hypermarket in Russia, and I think it's even difficult on camera to get a perspective of how big this place is and just how much of a selection of food they have. It's very strange coming into an Auchan midweek and how quiet it is. If you go to some of the Auchans closer to the center of Moscow, even on a midweek day, they're very busy. And this place again would really be much bigger and much busier on the weekends, like Saturdays and Sundays. A lot of people do work in Russia, and Monday to Friday are normal working days, also school days for children. So people won't necessarily come here and come shopping here. And the one thing I want to stress about this location of the shopping center is there is no housing nearby. There is nothing within walking distance of this place. Just for 1 minute. Does that look like Schweppes to you? I just saw that as I'm walking by. So when people want to come to this shopping center, they have to drive here by car. Or there is some buses, like I caught a bus here. However, pretty much people would drive here from a neighboring suburb or somewhere else in Moscow. This place is just massive. If you might remember going back, it's probably 6 months or 8 months ago now, when Tucker Carlson was in Russia, he actually came to an Auchan closer to the center of Moscow. I did actually make a video about it. If you're wondering why this middle section is pretty much empty, this is where their seasonal items would be. And this is always the arch nemesis in my video, the floor cleaners. Anyway, they're going to be putting here the Christmas or holiday section, and they're just literally emptying it out. So what they do is every 3 months they'd have a different seasonal section right here in the middle. Would really make a good thumbnail for this video though, how empty it feels in the middle of the store. This is just such a large place when you come in. You know, so the thing with coming to this shopping center, it's really a commitment to come here. Well, they have already a few things for the holidays, but that whole section in the middle there will be literally holiday heaven leading into November and December. If you're not sure how to conceptualize Auchan, think of this as 2 Walmarts side by side. That's probably the best way to think about it. Maybe a super Walmart times 2, or in England perhaps 3 Asdas, or in Australia 3 Kmarts. I think it's even then it's probably still too big. The one where Tucker Carlson went to was actually a multi-level Auchan, and he pretty much just stayed downstairs where the food was and didn't see any of this general merchandise area. And I to this day still wonder why he went to an Auchan to make a video and not to a Russian supermarket. It really feels very quiet in here. It's very nice to come shopping when it's quiet like this versus on the Saturday and Sundays when it's just trolleys everywhere. Now I do actually need something in here if I can figure out where it is. So I'm gonna stop recording for a minute or two and focus on what I need to find for myself. After walking around for about 15 minutes and needing to find 4 different people to help me, I found what I wanted. It's these furniture dots that you put under the legs of the kitchen table or whatever furniture to protect the floor. And it's very hard to explain what they are from English to Russian. So I managed to find what I wanted here in Auchan. And this store just keeps going and going. So even when you come in here just for a wander around, a good hour is already lost before you even get back to the exit. I think I really need to come back and do a standalone video of Auchan, because I think a lot of people would find it very interesting. Just the sheer assortment of things they've got in here and the amount of choices and all of the Western brands that are absolutely definitely on the shelf 2 years later than everybody up and left Russia, and the amount of different brands they've got, which is far more than they've possibly got even in Australia. If I compare, you can see classics like Captain Morgan there, Bacardi, there's rum from Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, even the gin section, there is plenty of choices. And I was just having a look over here at the Bacardi Spice. A 1 litre bottle is $16 US. Now, if you know Bacardi Spice, let me know what you're paying for it. And then I think the only appropriate way to end this is to show the very well-known American brands back there: Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, and Johnny Walker. So a litre of Jim Beam is $23, a litre of Jack Daniels $31, and of course all the Irish whiskies. And then there's the never-ending aisle of Russian vodkas. As I try to navigate my way out of Auchan, we've come to the end of the video. I really hope you found this interesting, of me returning to MEGA Tyoply Stan. The actual word Tyoply Stan is in reference to the region where we are here, and the shopping center is called MEGA. It really is big, so it's really an appropriate name for the place. And I hope me showing some differences between when I first came 2 years ago and now, you can understand that these shopping centers are still open, they're still trading. There isn't really that many stores that are actually closed. They're all trying to reopen, or new stores are coming into their places. So I think, it's just a matter of time until those last few shops are full at this shopping center. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That'll be very nice. Post a comment, let me know what you think about a lot of things that I've shown in the video, and perhaps how shopping centers are where you live, and let me know how it compares, from your city to where I am here in Moscow, and how the shopping centers feel. And I really hope it was an enjoyable video, and if you've made it to the end, you're amazing. Let me know in the comments if you got to the deep end of the video and you didn't jump out of the pool early. If you want to follow me on Telegram, my channel link is right here. And if you want to see an old video, maybe you want to see that original video from 2 years ago, you can check out the link right here. Of course, it's another walk around of the same place. You can get an idea of what it looked like 2 years ago. Okay, everybody, I'm off on another adventure. Bye.